Are you struggling to cope with the rising energy prices? Well, you're not alone. In fact, Egyptians have experienced a surge in energy prices by 350% since 2007. Raw energy alleviates this financial burden by capitalizing on Egypt's favorable geography. Egypt is renowned for its average 2,500 kilowatt hours per square meter of solar radiation per year, as well as the 10 hours of sunshine per day. Therefore, we as Raw Energy promise our customers that we will not match the rising energy prices generated from fossil fuels as we rely on solar power, one of the cleanest, safest, and most reliable sources of energy. Raw Energy capitalizes on these favorable properties and the country's location to drive Egypt's transformation to renewable energy sources through solar electrification. A key objective of Egypt is to expand renewable energy generation to 42% by 2035. In addition to reducing the environmental impact of energy generation and consumption by minimizing harmful emissions, the venture also creates a positive social impact on local communities, thus having positive externalities on people, planet, and profit.
The key activities we aim to implement revolve around the construction of a solar farm in Cairo surroundings, purchasing state-owned land. Given the massive demand for energy the Egyptian capital population generates, the solar farm will be possibly built around a solar tower that will improve its efficiency. Our model will be the Ashalim Power Station in the district of Beersheba in Israel, as it has revealed itself as a successful pioneering project. Our cooperation with the government will not be limited to the land purchase. We will also attach our farm to the national grid, and our activities will be focused around the sale to government entities, as creating the infrastructure to sell it directly to private straight away is not economically and timing-wise viable. We aim to strike a deal with the government, ensuring a quota of sales to the Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy of Egypt, which will subsidize our production to redistribute energy to the underprivileged demographics, which are currently struggling to have access to cheap energy sources. The coordination of planning, building, and eventually producing activities would require us to think in a long-term perspective, as it would need at least 5 years for us to have the whole plant complete and running. Eventually, when the project will be up and running, an investment on detaching our farm from a national grid and create our own infrastructure could be feasible. In order for our firm, Raw Energy, to complete such an ambitious project in a country where we had no previous operations, the reliance on trusted key partners is essential. We mentioned how the provision of land and capital will rely heavily on a partnership with the Egyptian government, which will cooperate with us and subsidize the project for the part of capital that green bonds lack to provide at a good price. They would do so, as we said, to provide poorer peripheral neighborhoods with cheap, clean energy. Furthermore, key partners would be instrumental for the organization of the supply chain, both in terms of material and labor, and for the provision of knowledge in terms of advisories and consultancies. The Arab African Energy Company, a key player in Egypt's renewable industry, will advise us on how to organize the supply and manufacturing of the solar panel parts. Moreover, the familiarity with the existing power grid could help us identify the best way to link our solar farm to the existing infrastructure and improve it where necessary. The construction of a solar park in Cairo neighborhood would be facilitated by the cooperation with the Arab contractor, an engineering and building firm that has extensive knowledge of the territory and could help us identify the perfect area within the state-owned land around Cairo and how to build on such territory.
According to the International Renewable Energy Agency, the cost of manufacturing solar panels has plummeted by 82% in the last 10 years, providing healthy financial returns and a reduced payback period. Although we aim to become a value-driven business in the future, it's inherently cost-driven. Minimizing costs wherever possible is crucial. The raw solar farm initial investment will be the most crucial, as it's inherently the highest cost to the business and will determine the ROI. Egypt is demonstrating regional leadership in its effort to accelerate the sustainable transition and is expected to finalize a $3 billion loan to be used in part to finance sustainable projects, including solar projects. The Commercial International Bank, the country's largest private sector bank, pioneered Egypt's first green corporate bond that will increase lending to business that want to invest in renewable energy and energy efficiency, which will be crucial in our initial funding.
When looking at the cost structure of our solar panel farm, there are 4 basic elements that make up our expenses. Firstly, we have the cost of goods sold or capital investment, which are made up of the purchase of the solar panels themselves, the land we build our farm on, and any other additional expenses, such as the installation cost or the cost for permits and customer acquisition. Having roughly calculated the cost of capital investment, we will need around 45 million to install our farm at a size of 32 gigawatts. Additionally, we have the typical general and administrative costs, which only make up a small part of our overall cost as annual costs. Another important part of our cost structure are the costs for our operations and support. These costs include the maintenance and the cleaning of our solar panels. These will also be accounted for annually. Combined, the G&A and the ONS costs will come roughly to 750k annually. Regarding the revenue stream of our solar farm, we have calculated that there will be a revenue of around 9 million per year, which will in turn give us a payback period of around 5.5 years. Additional key resources that are included in our cost structure are technicians that will install and maintain the farm. And lastly, we need the tools and cables that connect our farm to the local energy storage.
So now on to the customer segment and customer relationship. When first operating in Egypt, we decided that our customer segment will be B2G. We will sell our electricity to the government, given that they are in control of the national grid. However, as we provide value for the people of Egypt by selling affordable resources, the government will likely let us sell B2C. In order to do so, we would start by establishing our own grid that connects to rural areas where people do not have sufficient access to electricity. So in the short term, we want to establish and maintain a net positive relationship with the Egyptian government, which will then aid in our long-term goal of supporting underprivileged households that lack access to electricity. When looking at some limitations, we face that by supplying consumers in those areas, they tend to have less disposable income than those in urban areas. A study conducted in 2019, which I found by Heba Ezeldin, suggests that the wealth disparity between urban and rural areas has increased significantly within the past 25 years. This has been measured through GDP per capita, and bears the uncertainty of the fact if rural households will be able to afford the electricity that we provide. Even though energy prices are decreasing year over year and they are becoming more accessible, it is still a viable concern and uncertainty that we would have to deal with.
Thank you for your attention, and together we will look for a cleaner and brighter future.